Just rain. Steady, harmless at first. Then as the hours passed, the skies over Mexico broke open. What began as a routine downpour turned into a catastrophe that swallowed towns, tore apart roads, and buried lives under mud and water. Within days, rivers that once nourished the valleys became raging monsters, and by the time the clouds cleared, at least 28 people were dead, dozens missing, and thousands left without homes. This is how the flood came. Silent, steady, unstoppable. Across Mexico, 31 of 32 states reported heavy rainfall, but the worst devastation came from 4 names now etched in memory: Veracruz, Hidalgo, Puebla, and San Luis Potosí. Each state saw rivers overflow, hillsides collapse, and families forced to flee in the dead of night. In Hidalgo, the disaster struck hardest. Mudslides swept through entire communities. Rivers tore through towns that had stood for generations. Officials confirmed 16 deaths, men, women, and children caught in a storm that refused to end. At least 1,000 homes lay in ruins, 59 hospitals and clinics were damaged, and more than 300 schools were left underwater or buried in debris. In 17 of Hidalgo's 84 municipalities, power vanished completely. For the people there, night wasn't just dark, it was endless. Civil defense teams worked without sleep. Helicopters circled overhead, searching for those who hadn't made it to higher ground. President Claudia Sheinbaum held emergency meetings with local leaders, calling the situation unlike anything seen in years. Her message was simple: rescue, restore, and rebuild. She posted photos of responders wading through chest-deep water, hauling food and medicine through the flooded streets. In neighboring Puebla, the flood took another 9 lives. 13 people were still missing, many swept away when the rivers burst through their banks. The governor described how entire neighborhoods disappeared under the water within minutes. Around 80,000 people were affected. In one town, a landslide ruptured a gas pipeline, turning the air into a cloud of fuel and fear. Rescue teams found themselves fighting both fire and flood. The governor pleaded for federal help to save 15 people, including children, stranded on rooftops surrounded by water that refused to retreat. Meanwhile, the Gulf state of Veracruz faced its own nightmare. Rivers bled into the streets of Poza Rica, one of its busiest cities. Floodwaters rose so high that cars were carried away like driftwood. 2 people died, one of them a police officer who was trying to rescue residents trapped in their homes. The Navy stepped in, evacuating nearly 900 people to temporary shelters. Around 5,000 homes were damaged. An entire neighborhood stood in silence, waiting for the rain to stop. The rain did not stop. Across 6 states, nearly 1,000 kilometers of roads were damaged or destroyed. Power lines fell. More than 320,000 people lost electricity. In some regions, the only light came from flashlights and the burning glow of emergency flares. Yet even in the darkness, soldiers and volunteers pressed on. More than 8,700 military personnel were deployed nationwide, clearing roads, delivering aid, and pulling survivors from rising rivers. But the floods weren't nature's only weapon. Out at sea, the Pacific churned with another threat. Tropical storm Raymond was gathering strength just off the coast. Meteorologists warned it was moving northward, set to dump even more rain as it approached the mainland. And Raymond wasn't alone. It followed Tropical Storm Priscilla and post-tropical cyclone Octave, 3 systems in a single week, each throwing new waves of water toward a country already drowning. Experts pointed to one culprit: La Niña. The cooling of the Pacific Ocean had returned, twisting global weather patterns and making storms stronger, longer, and deadlier. It was already late in the hurricane season, But Mexico's skies didn't seem to care. In Puerto Vallarta, the ocean itself turned violent. What looked like another cloudy day turned into a spectacle of destruction. Waves rose more than 15 feet high, crashing into the city's boardwalk. Streets turned into rivers. Cars floated like toys. Restaurants, hotels, and beach houses disappeared beneath the surge. It wasn't even a direct hit. Priscilla had stayed offshore, but the storm's power still reached across the sea. It was enough to tear through docks, flood neighborhoods, and leave behind a city gasping for air. By nightfall, Puerto Vallarta was unrecognizable. Sirens wailed, palm trees lay across roads. The famous Malecon, once full of tourists, was buried in debris. Emergency crews carried people through waist-deep water as power lines sparked above them. Residents watched helplessly as seawater filled their homes, carrying away years of memories in minutes. Across the nation, fear spread as rivers overflowed and landslides swallowed entire roads. Families packed what little they could carry and walked through mud and rain, searching for safety. Shelters filled to capacity. Volunteers handed out food and blankets. The government pledged to restore power and rebuild roads. But everyone knew it would take weeks, maybe months, before life could return to normal. When dawn broke after days of chaos, Mexico woke up to a changed landscape. Hillsides were scarred, cities still flooded, and the air smelled of wet soil and gasoline. In Veracruz, teams began clearing debris from highways that had turned into trenches. In Puebla, rescuers dug through collapsed houses searching for the missing. In Hidalgo, water lines on the walls showed just how high the flood had climbed. But amid the devastation, stories of courage emerged. Soldiers carrying children across raging waters. Neighbors forming human chains to reach trapped families. Fishermen using their boats to ferry people to safety. Mexico's resilience, tested again and again by nature, refused to break. Por favor, alguien que lo ayude. Por favor, se quedó ahí. Mandan el video, por favor, para que alguien lo ayude. Meteorologists warn that what happened this year might be just the beginning. Climate change, rising ocean temperatures, and shifting air currents are turning ordinary storms into deadly events. In 2025, Mexico City itself recorded its highest rainfall in history, and experts fear that the next wave of storms could be even stronger. Still, the people stand. In the shelters of Veracruz, families huddle together, watching the rain fall softly outside, uncertain if it will start again. In Puebla, children play in the mud outside flooded schools, too young to understand the loss, but old enough to feel the fear. In Hidalgo, workers rebuild walls and power lines, determined not to give up. Está sucediendo aquí en la colonia Ignacio de la Llave. La rapiña se hizo presente este día. Como pueden observar, ya abrieron el acceso al puente Cazones 1. Toda la mañana de este viernes estuvo cerrado por autoridades. Y bueno, así se puede observar como la gente corre con bolsas, canastas, tambores. For those who survived, the flood was not just a natural disaster, it was a reminder. A reminder of how quickly peace can turn into chaos. How rivers, once a source of life, can rise against the land that depends on them. And how a nation's strength isn't measured by the storms it faces, but by how it rises after them. That's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more clear and calm reports on extreme weather events. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Please note that some footage in this video is for illustrative purposes and may not depict the exact events described. Thank you for watching and stay safe.